All right, good morning. Today is May 14th. Welcome to Algebra 1. Like always, if you are watching this video, make sure you have a paper and pencil in front of you for notes. And then don't forget that office hours are on Wednesdays and Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m. So if you have any questions, you can come in, ask those questions then, and you do not have to stay the whole time. As usual, if you can please plug into the comments how you're feeling today between a 0 and a 10, 0 being great, 10 being not so great. The objectives for today, Thursday, May 14th, are that you will review writing equations from standard form to slope-intercept form, and then you're going to go ahead and solve systems of equations by graphing. So let's go ahead and review the do now for today. So when we look at a problem like this one, where 6x minus 6 minus 4 is equal to negative 22, we need to know how to solve this. So right away, I noticed that these are like terms, because notice how similar they are. Even if this were a positive, the fact that they're just coefficients or just numbers, you can combine them and put those together. So that leaves me with, I keep this in front, right, 6x. And then minus 6 minus 4, I know that's equal to negative 10. And then everything else stays the same. So this is where I use what I've learned throughout the semester, where you solve for x. But first, I have to get rid of this minus 10. So I add 10 to each side. That leaves me with 6x is equal to, and then negative 22 plus 10, I know that that's negative 12. And then x is still not by itself, so I have to make sure to divide each side by 6. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side, and that leaves me with x is equal to negative 2. And that's what I plug into my answer. The x is equal to is already there, so I just put negative 2. Let's look at question number 2. So this is using what we learned at our last session, where we changed something from being in standard form. So this where it's ax plus by is equal to c. And we want to change it to look like this, mx plus b, where it looks more like slope-intercept form. Okay. So what we're going to do is, this is where, remember, we write out first, we write out y equals mx plus b. And our next step was to write out the equation that was originally given to us. So 3x minus 7y equals negative 21. And the next step was to try to make this look more like this, where y is by itself. So right away, I take away the 3x from each side because I want to move the x to the right. Notice how x is right there, so I want to move it from the left to the right. And the only way to do that is by doing the opposite. So if I have 3x, then I subtract by 3x. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side. That leaves me with negative 7y is equal to, and then because these two numbers do not have an x, but well, both of them don't have an x, and then both of them are not just coefficients by themselves, then I can't combine them, right? They're not like terms where I can combine them and just put them together, so I have to leave them as separate numbers. But I want to make sure to put the x first because, again, I'm trying to make it look like this. If I put it last, it will not look like that. So I want to do minus 3x minus 21 because, again, I'm just putting those two side by side. Now, again, my goal is to get y by itself. So in order to get y by itself, I need to get rid of that negative 7. Whenever you have a number and a variable together, that represents multiplication. So you have to do the opposite, which is you divide by 7. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. Remember that there's two ways to do this. You can either just do divide by negative 7 to the whole thing, but to me that can sometimes be a bit confusing because I'm not sure what numbers I'm supposed to divide by negative 7. So what I personally like to do instead is I like to divide each number that's represented here by negative 7. I would do that, and I would do this. Okay. That leaves me with y is equal to a negative 3 divided by negative 7. I can plug that into the calculator and it'll give me a decimal, but I'm going to leave it as a fraction. I know that a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so that leaves me with I'll leave it as 3 over 7x. And the negative 21 divided by negative 7 is positive 3. Again, the negative divided by negative is a positive. and then I look for my answer within these options. Right away, I look for the 3/7, and it has to be positive. So I know this is not an option. I know this is not an option because that has a negative. And I know that that's not an option because even though there is a 3/7 for both of these, it's not in the right place. It's not attached to that X, okay? Where it is attached to the X is for option A, where it looks identical to our answer. So I'm gonna go ahead and circle that. And that's it for today's do now. Now, today's focus question is, you and your friends want to go to a skate park on Saturday. There are 2 parks in your neighborhood, Sam's Skate Park and Brad's Skate Park. The parks both charge for skating at their park. Each park's price is described below. Sam's Skate Park, they charge $3 to get into the park, and then an additional $1 for every hour that you're in there. And then Brad's Skate Park charges $5 to get into the park, and then 50 cents for every hour. So one of them is obviously more expensive to get in, but the other one is more expensive to stay. So they want you to figure out, well, which one is more convenient? And that's something you just need to eventually figure out, which we're not going to do right away. But as you notice, it doesn't really ask you questions. So there are many questions you can ask for this. For this problem, maybe you can ask questions like, after 2 hours, how much did you pay? You might ask, which one is more expensive after staying for 2 hours? You might ask, well, how many hours do you have to stay at each park for it to equal out? There are a lot of different questions, and that's something that we'll focus on near the end. So what's a system of equations? A system of linear equations contains 2 or more equations. The solution of such a system is an ordered pair that is a solution to both equations. The solution to the system will be in the point where the 2 lines intersect. So I know that that's a lot of information, but to kind of summarize it, a system of equations is where you have 2 equations or more, and then using those 2 equations, you find an ordered pair that's a solution. To remind you, an ordered pair, whoa, that is not what I meant to do. I meant to underline that. But now that we have that, an ordered pair is when you have coordinates. You have an X and you have your Y values. So using your 2 equations, you find where the 2 lines intersect, so where they cross. And so right where they cross, that is your solution to the system of equations. So again, when you get 2 equations, you have to find where they both meet. Where do they cross each other? Now we're going to watch this video really briefly that explains in more detail what that means.
In this problem, we have a system of equations. In other words, we have 2 linear equations like this. Y equals negative x minus 2, and y equals x plus 3. There are different ways to solve systems of equations. In this case, let's solve this by graphing. So what we want to find is x is equal to something and y is equal to something. What that means when you graph it is what point do the 2 lines intersect? And that will be our answer. That will be our x and our y. So let's just graph each of these individually and see where they intersect, and that'll be our answer. Let's begin with this one, y equals x plus 3. So the slope is 1, and the y-intercept is 3. So we start at x is equal to 0.
And remember that the slope is 1 because in front of the x, anytime you have a variable, there's an imaginary 1 in front of it.
And y is equal to 3. Okay, so now we need one more point and we can graph from there. So we have the slope of 1. So basically we have this point, and we want to go up 1 and to the right 1, or down 1 and to the left 2. So either way, it's going to be just a basic line like this. So up 1 and to the right 1, etc. Down 1 to the left 1. Okay, so now we have a point that crosses like so. Down 1 over 1 more, and down 1 and over 1 more. So it crosses right about there. So a line like that. Now one more line, and then we can see where they intersect. So we have the slope of -1 and a y-intercept of -2.
Remember that the slope is -1 because it's negative x again, that imaginary 1, but because it's a negative, it's a negative 1.
So we again begin at -2 right here. And now in this case, we have a negative slope. So instead of going up to the right, it goes down to the right. So it looks something like this. The slope is -1. So we go up 1 and to the left 1, or down 1 and to the right 1, however you want to do it. So we'll have a point here, up 1, left 1, here, up 1, left 1, here, and one more, up 1, left 1. Great, so now we have enough points that we can see where they cross. So it looks like it crosses right about here. We'll draw this line. It's about as accurate as we can be here. So now we can see where these intersect. So luckily it comes out to a pretty nice number. We don't have to guess too much, but it's midway between these 2 points, -2 and -3, and midway between these 2 points, 0 and 1. So our point is right here, and that's our answer, and that looks to me to be -2.5, and y is 0.5. So that's our answer. X is equal to -2.5, and y is.
Okay, so if we go back to that last part that he showed, let me see if I'm able to. Okay, I might have to do this. There we go. So notice to find the answer, he focused on where, let me go a little bit more. There we go. He focused on where the 2 lines meet. So where did both of the lines cross? And that is your answer. So then he took the X. So he went -1, -2, and it doesn't go all the way to -3. It goes somewhere in between. So that's about -2.5. And then he took the Y. So he didn't put 0. He didn't put 1 because it's somewhere in between. So he chose 0.5 as the answer. And that's how you find a system of equations.
That's our answer. X is equal to
There we go. So let's go ahead and quickly practice this. For a question like this one, you find the solution to the system of equations. So you're given 2 equations, right? And then you graph them. So because of time and also because it's pretty difficult to graph virtually like this, what you go ahead and do is you graph the first equation either way on your paper. So y equals 2x plus 2, and it looks something like the red line. Then you graph y equals x minus 1, and that looks like the blue line. And then you find where those 2 points meet. Okay? And if we look at where they meet, so they meet, first we find our x value, and notice that's -3. Obviously, that would be a straight line. We look at our y value, and that's -4. So my answer is -3, -4. So for your homework assignments, it will look like this. Where it'll already be graphed for you. You just have to see where the points meet. So remember, when I asked for the solution to the system of equations, I mean, tell me where the points meet. So again, we're going to look at this problem. So we have y equals x plus 8, y equals -4, x minus 2. You go ahead and graph it. So the first one being graphed is y equals x plus 8, and it looks like this one, like the blue line. Then I'm going to graph y equals -4x minus 2, and that'll look like the red line. And again, I need to find the solution. So the solution would mean I have to figure out where the 2 lines cross. And again, they cross right there. So I look at x, it crosses at -2. I look at y, and that's 6. That is my answer to this question. Again, I do the same thing. I graph y equals x minus 7. So I look at the y-intercept, which is -7. The slope is 1/1. So I go ahead and graph that. I look at y equals -2x plus 2. So the y-intercept is 2. The slope is -2. I got that. That's the yellow line. And again, we just see where do both of those lines meet. So we look at x first, and that's 3. We look at y next, and that's -4. And that is my answer. Now, if you go to this site, it's a really cool site because it'll let you practice, and it'll even let you graph, and you get to practice graphing by just clicking. So I would recommend going to this website to practice that. Now, we don't have much time, but I did want to review this really quickly. Here, I just want you to create an equation. So for both of them, you're trying to figure out how much it would cost to get into this park. So I would right away, for the first one, for Sam's skate park, we'll just put SSP for Sam Skate Park. Y is equal to, how much do they charge every hour? Well, they charge $1 per hour, and you pay a $3 fee right from the start. That's your equation. Another way to write it would be y is equal to x plus 3, because again, that 1 is imaginary, it's assumed, so we don't need to include it. Brad's skate park, on the other hand, again, what's the total gonna be? We don't know, so that's called y. We know that they charge 50 cents per hour, so that's the value that keeps changing, so 50 cents per hour, because we don't know how many hours, and they charge an initial fee of $5, so that's my equation. So notice now I have two equations where this would be my system of equations, and one way to solve them would be to go ahead and graph it if we had more time. Again, there are many other questions that we can answer based on this, but this is all I want to focus on for now. So as a reminder, office hours are Wednesdays and Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m. If you have any questions, make sure to complete the do now for today, the exit ticket, and if you have not already, please complete that CFA 3A, and then make sure to complete the do now for Monday's session, which will be up on Sunday. All right, so if you are watching, again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, have a great day.